See these two police officers, sheriff's deputies, shoot a man who they had been called on a domestic disturbance. He appears in the video, this is cell phone video, to have his hands up. This is very disturbing video because you watch someone be killed, but we do want to show it here so that you can tell us what you're seeing. There, his hands are up, and now he's shot to death. Matthew, explain what we're seeing.
I don't think there's too much explanation necessary. The Graham versus Connor standard of objective reasonableness for use of force is very clear, and that's what law enforcement officers are guided by. In this case, there is no objectiveness or any reasonableness about what we just saw on that video.
When you look at that as a law enforcement officer, you don't see any reason that they opened fire on him.
I don't see any reason whatsoever why they would have. I understand that there may be some things to come into play about state of mind of the officers, but the individual's hands were up. He should have been arrested and brought in without using lethal force.
They say that one of his arms is obscured by the pole in that video, that we can't see what's in his left arm, and that he had a knife.
Drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. Verbal commands are the first form of escalation of force. We didn't see it. They may have done it, but certainly when he was shot by officers, his hands were up in the air.
And there's no justification for shooting someone with their hands up in the air, even if they have a weapon.
In 27 years of law enforcement, I've never seen one. Every case is uniquely different.
Wow, that's a strong assessment, Matthew. Oh, let's move on to what's.
Good morning, Michaela. You're absolutely right. Cop killers on the loose and a community on edge. The latest on this investigation this morning is that it has all been turned over to the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. But here is the backstory. It all starts at 8 a.m. yesterday morning when Lieutenant Glenowek was out in the community investigating suspicious activity when he radioed into dispatch that he was in the pursuit of 3 individuals. Here is that radio exchange.
Could you start for Fox Lake for an officer down, 128 Honig? We'll create the call. They were responding to a report of a suspicious, a male black and a male white. It appears the officer's gun is missing now as well.
All Lake County units responding to officer down, Fox Lake. The subjects are to be considered armed and dangerous. Pair 1 has been advised.
Now, this, of course, unleashed a massive manhunt, including state, local, and federal authorities. Dozens of K-9 units were dispatched. Air support was also launched. But here we are nearly 24 hours later, and those suspects are still on the loose. And this community not only on edge, schools are closed, but they, of course, are mourning today and this morning for that Lieutenant Glenowek, which we are told that he was one with the community, served 30 years in the police force, a father of 4, a husband, and from what we hear, just a very, very generous with his time, giving back to this community day in and day out.
Yeah, Rose, it seems like everyone knows him, and you hear the pain in the voices coupled with the fear now as this manhunt continues. Thank you so much, Rosa. A video showing police near San Antonio fatally shooting a man who appears to have his hands raised. It is sparking outrage. Authorities now say there is a second video that provides a clearer view of the incident. Will the public, though, get to see it? CNN's Sarah Seidner following the developments for us live in San Antonio. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, John. Yes, the FBI, we now know, is assisting in the investigation along with the district attorney's office and the sheriff's department. And we now know from the district attorney who told me yesterday that he is looking at 2 videos, one of which a witness released to the public. The other one has not been released, and he says it is that video that is very clear and will help the district attorney's office determine whether or not to charge the officers in this case. We want to warn you, the video that has been released that you're going to see in just a moment is very disturbing. Officials in Texas are now examining 2 videos capturing this officer-involved shooting in San Antonio.
Bro, they just shot that bro.
This video shows veteran officers Greg Vasquez and Robert Sanchez shooting and killing 41-year-old Gilbert Flores Friday afternoon.
Bro, they just cold-blooded shot that.
Michael Thomas recorded the video and tells us he was surprised to see the officers open fire when Flores clearly had at least one arm raised.
I was just thinking, like, if he stepped back, why would they shoot him then after they were just kind of going back and forth for so long? And then you shoot him after he steps back, not attacking you or anything like that.
Officials say the second video, not released to the public, shows a much closer and clearer angle. The Bexar County DA and sheriff both discouraging knee-jerk reactions.
I don't have to say anything that anybody can't get to that conclusion on their own when they look at the video. They're troubling. But what I encourage people to do is not react.
The officers arrived at Florida's house responding to a domestic dispute call.
Looks like the male that called it in assaulted his wife and child, so possibly 2 patients. And he is also threatening suicide.
When police arrived, they say he was armed with a knife and resisting arrest.
They also tried to use non-lethal weapons to try and detain him. And after a lengthy confrontation, both deputies fired shots, causing the man's death.
Thomas first provided his video to CNN affiliate KSAT. On Monday, the sheriff's office labeling it as unethical and sad for the news station to purchase and air the video, also tweeting, broadcasting a man's death for $100 sparked threats to our deputies' lives, to which the station says it's their obligation to inform the public, saying in part it is not uncommon for news organizations to pay for video for freelancers or citizen journalists. Now, we can tell you that the district attorney says they will move swiftly in this case as soon as they get the entire investigation handed over to them by the sheriff's department. We do know the family has retained an attorney who plans to sue the city, saying the family is extremely disturbed and mourning. Michaela?
Yeah, that second video is going to prove so vital here. Sarah, thank you so much for that. Meanwhile, Baltimore is bracing for potential unrest as the 6 officers charged in connection with the death of Freddie Gray head to court. Our Jean Casares is in Baltimore. She joins us now with all of the latest on that. Jean.
Good morning, Michaela. This community is definitely aware that today is an extremely important hearing in the case of the 6 police officers that are charged in the death of Freddie Gray. In fact, the Baltimore Police Department is telling its entire force they cannot take leave today. So if they had a day off today, they have to come in. This is to prepare for anything that possibly could happen. We do understand there will be increased police presence around the courthouse, and community activists are actually encouraging peaceful demonstrations, peaceful protests, and the word around town is that they are encouraging people to go to the higher socioeconomic areas of Baltimore. All this because of this hearing today, and the defense is really the reason for this hearing. They are asking the judge to dismiss some or all of the charges. They are asking that the state attorney, Marilyn Mosby, be recused from this case, that because of so many conflicts of interest, she cannot prosecute it, that a special prosecutor should be brought in, and also the question of whether these defendants should be tried together or separately or in groups. And another thing that is on the minds of a lot of people here is the state attorney, Marilyn Mosby, is due to have a fundraiser right here in Baltimore in about 2 weeks. Allison?
Oh, it's complicated, Jean. Thanks so much for all of that. So for more on all 3 of these police incidents, let's bring in Matthew Horace. He's the Senior Vice President for FJC Security Services and a former ATF executive. Matthew, thanks so much for being here. So we have these 3 troubling law enforcement stories to get through. Let's go through one where there is an active manhunt right now. This is in Fox Lake, Illinois. This is the one where police are looking for 3 suspects. We believe 2 white guys, 1 black guy, they believe, who shot their police officer. They don't have much to go on. Here, let me just play for you the information that the dispatcher has. Here's the sound.
Could you start for Fox Lake for an officer down, 128 Honig? We'll create the call. They were responding to a report of a suspicious, a male black and a male white. It appears the officer's gun is missing now as well.
All Lake County units responding to officer down, Fox Lake. The subjects are to be considered armed and dangerous. Air 1 has been advised.
All the police officer who was killed was able to radio in is that he was pursuing 3 suspects on foot. Where do they even begin?
Well, they're going to begin to try to determine if anyone was at that scene or close to the scene that can give us some vital clues about the identities of those suspects.
But schools are closed today.
Yes.
I mean, in 3 different districts, the community is very scared. They do believe that maybe he took the officer's gun, or clearly they were armed, since he was killed. That's not a lot. Two white guys, one black guy, that's not a lot to go on.
It's very difficult, but we've seen law enforcement through the years solve crimes just like this with a lot less information. So I'm quite sure that everything we're hearing is not everything that they have. That's the first thing. The second, boots on the ground. You've seen the organizations galvanize, federal, state, and local, and they are following leads. They're allowing the information to drive the investigation. So while it may seem like we don't have a lot, I'm sure they have more than we're aware of.
And the fact that school districts are closed, does that tell you that they do believe that these suspects are still in the area?
Well, just like in other cases like this, Allison, if they are still there and we still have boots on the ground, there is good intelligence that tells us that these suspects are in that area.
All right, let's move on to Bayard County, Texas. That's where we see these two police officers, sheriff's deputies, shoot a man who they had been called on a domestic disturbance. He appears in the video, this is cell phone video, to have his hands up. This is very disturbing video because you watch someone be killed, but we do want to show it here so that you can tell us what you're seeing. There, his hands are up, and now he's shot to death. Matthew, explain what we're seeing.
I don't think there's too much explanation necessary. The Graham versus Connor standard of objective reasonableness for use of force is very clear, and that's what law enforcement officers are guided by. In this case, there is no objectiveness or any reasonableness about what we just saw on that video.
When you look at that as a law enforcement officer, you don't see any reason that they opened fire on him.
I don't see any reason whatsoever why they would have. I understand that there may be some things to come into play about state of mind of the officers, but the individual's hands were up. He should have been arrested and brought in without using lethal force.
They say that one of his arms is obscured by the pole in that video, that we can't see what's in his left arm, and that he had a knife.
Drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. Verbal commands are the first form of escalation of force. We didn't see it. They may have done it, but certainly when he was shot by officers, his hands were up in the air.
And there's no justification for shooting someone with their hands up in the air, even if they have a weapon.
In 27 years of law enforcement, I've never seen one. Every case is uniquely different.
Wow. That's a strong assessment, Matthew. Oh, let's move on to what's going on in Baltimore. Pretrial hearings for these 6 officers involved in Freddie Gray's death are beginning in Baltimore. Obviously, it's a heated issue. It will be a heated trial. How is Baltimore preparing?
Crisis management 101. Expect the best. Prepare for the worst. I'm sure that the state of Maryland, the city of Baltimore, the mayor, the police department, they're going with their intelligence, they're examining social media, and they're coming up with a crisis plan to ensure that any peaceful protests don't get out of hand and go into riot status this time.
So we're connecting the dots this morning on these 3 issues that are happening around the country. Do you sense from your contacts, are police feeling more embattled? Are they feeling under fire, or are we sort of putting a title to this that doesn't exist? This is just police business as usual.
Well, I think there are 3 things going on. Number one, the optics of our lives are very different. They're very different because of cameras. They're very different because of social media. Police may be feeling a little bit more of a burgeoning stress or pressures, but listen, probable cause hasn't changed for quite some time. Reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Number 2, the public is seeing more now than they've ever seen in the past, and that's creating tension and stress. You can't really draw inference for all those things. And lastly, this year, up to this quarter, there were 83 police officers killed in the United States. 1 is way too many. 1% down from last year. Even if the current trend continues, we still won't match last year's numbers. So I think we have to put things in perspective. Law enforcement is a very dangerous job. We should never have to lose our lives doing it, but we do. We're dealing with dangerous people.
Matthew, Horace, thanks so much for walking us through all of it this morning. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Get over to John.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.